Kampus terbaik, inspirasi, tebarkan harapan. Kampus terbaik, inovasi, wujudkan impian. Kampus terbaik, integritas, kuatkan tujuan. Kampus terbaik, beri terbaik untuk negeri, untuk dunia, umat manusia dan alam semesta. Mari bersama hadirkan masa depan dalam langkah dan pikiran agar
Cek satu cek satu cek. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace and greetings to all of you. Good morning, distinguished speakers, respected guests, and all participants. Let me introduce myself. My name is Gilandi Ramadan. I will be emceeing for today's sessions and also moderator for as well for these sessions. Welcome to IPB-CAU Rural Transformation Insight Series, first volume, How to Understand Rural Transformation in China. This event is proudly organized by IPB Center of Excellence on China Rural Transformation Studies. And today's discussion will be highly relevant as rural transformation is no longer a local issue, but also global concerns. And now we see in China not only as a emerging economic power, but also a big economic power. And we want to see how it transforms not only its urban but also rural systems and become increasingly interconnected. But to begin our programs, we will start by listening to our executive directors of IPB charts. So it is my honor to invite Prof. Rilus Akinseng to deliver the welcoming speech. Please, Prof. Rilus, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Actually, this is not really planned initially, so so that's why I think my speech just very short. Basically, on behalf of the IPB's Center of Excellence for China Rural Transformation Studies, we saw it become IPB charts. We would like to welcome Prof. Tang. It's nice that you have opportunity to share your knowledge and information about rural transformation in China. I think we learned a lot from your presentation. Indonesia is also undergone, has been actually up to now also has undergone rural transformation. So I think it is important for us to learn how China doing this, so we can learn from that. So once again, welcome back to IPB Bogor, and I hope you enjoy Bogor, and also thank you for everyone for coming for this series. So we will have another series later on, so stay tuned to our program. I hope you will enjoy this talk, and thank you very much for your coming. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Rilus, for the insightful remarks. And once again, welcome. So this will be only one series. We will have at least 6 for the next 1 year, regarding on how we learn we learn the transformation of rural areas in China. So today's topic, the first volume, will be about how to understand rural transformation in China. That will be presented by Professor Tang Lixia. She is chairman of College of Humanity and Developments in China Agricultural University. So it encourages us to move beyond a simple understanding of developments. We will hear a lot of things regarding the urban-rural dualism integrations, farmer livelihoods, and all things related to the rural transformation in China. So this makes China not only a case study, but also a lens through which we can reflect on broader development challenges, including countries like ours, Indonesia, our lovely countries. So, Professor Tang, the floor is yours. You may present your presentations, please.
Terima kasih. Selamat pagi. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's my third time to come to Indonesia. I already spent 1 week in Jakarta and Karawang to visit different areas. So I think it's a good process for our cooperation between China Agricultural University and IPB. So we initiated this series. We hope we could organize this series in coming year. With our researchers, maybe also we also invite your researchers to come to my university. In May, we also organize this kind of activity in China. We invited one Chinese researcher who worked in Indonesia to share something about Indonesia transformation in past several decades. Why I just want to start this topic, because it's quite a broad topic. It's very difficult to share the full landscape of rural transformation in almost the past 4 decades. Because when we talk about China's development, we always set up 1978. 1978 was a milestone for China's development. Before 1978, we were in planning economic system, and since then we started to reform and opening policies. But in China, if we talk about reform, because maybe you read some articles about China's development, reform is one of keywords. But reform comes from rural area, not start from urban area. So we started our basic fundamental reform from rural area, from agriculture, from village. So today I try my best to use some times to build up preliminary understanding about rural transformation in China, because we will cooperate to do further analysis on this topic in coming years. So China is a country, the policies, the government and the policy developed a very important role to promote development. So that's why some researchers labeled China as a kind of the developmental state, the state-dominant development model. When I traveled around in Indonesia, I have, if I'm not right, but please correct me, but I just want to share my opinions after I traveled around in your country. In China, when we talk about the government, we talk about the policy. Most people will think, the policy are quite good. And also the policy can be committed very strongly. But here, maybe due to the different governance system, sometimes we have the policy, but maybe the implementation it was a big problem for that. For example, you also have a very, I reviewed a lot of policies. I think these policies from the documentary level is much better than us. It's a good framework, it's good designing, but we talked with some local researchers and also civil servants in Indonesia countries. They shared with me about the challenges for implementation. But in China, we have very, not perfect, but I think it's a good process to implement the policies. A lot of Indonesians always confused that, ask me how about the party system in China. It's a little bit sensitive, but actually I think this system make our policies very continuously. So since 1978, we always try to promote different reform in rural area to promote agricultural development and the rural transformation. Not means the policy since 1978 is always kept same to now. No. So we have a lot of researchers also say in China reform is gradually. It's gradually. So we always gradually to adapt our policy to for the background, for the economic development stage. In the different stage, we have different priorities. So in the beginning, so we started our reform on land issue. In Indonesia, so you have the land tenure is different to China. So in China, we cannot talk about you sell your land, you buy the land. No, you cannot say something like that, because in China, the land ownership belongs to the village and the state. So we have two types tenure of land: the village land and the state land. So the farmers, the village will transfer the using right to the farmers. So all the farmers in 1978 to 1985, they got the using right from the village. So they sign a kind of contract with the village. So the duration of the contract is 30 years. Now it is in the second round of the contract. So the government in 2017, the government said, okay, we will continue this kind of land tenure system, extend another 30 years of using right of the land. So from 1978 to now, it means the farmers could have the using right last of almost 70 years. It's like you have the land, but you cannot say you have the land. So that's why in China we do not have the typical landless farmers, because you cannot sell land. You can transfer, and some farmers, they will move to the urban area and work as a migrant laborers in past several decades. They didn't want to continue to work on agriculture, but how they can manage their land, they will transfer their using right to others. So that's why we use the transfer, rent, or transfer is more accurate from our law. Yeah. So transfer the using right to others. So now a lot of smallholder farmers, they left from village. They moved from village to urban area. But they still keep the using contract with the village. One day, if they didn't want to stay in the urban, they really want to go back to their home village, they can go back, because they still have their own property, the house in village. But maybe most of the farmers, the next generation, they didn't want to go back. Yeah, they will stay in urban area. So that's the transformation in past decades. So if we go through our policy, yeah, in the first stage, we just focus on the land issue. Then the farmers got the using right. Then they have very strong promotion to improve the yield of the agriculture, because they planted, they got a good harvest, they can get more. At that moment, in the beginning of 1980s, China is, I think, it was similar to Indonesia. We didn't have too many factories. We didn't have too many industries. So the farmers only can stay in the village to work on agriculture. Their livelihood depend on agriculture. But since we started our opening policy, so China started to absorb the FDI from international society, especially in coastal provinces. So then they need more and more laborers. Then the government released the shaping of the laborers mobilization. Before, the farmers cannot move to urban area because we have very strict supplier system. You have to, if you want to buy food in the market, you have to use the specific coupon. Without coupon, you cannot buy food in the market freely. But along with the agricultural development, all the regulations has been released in 1990s, in the beginning of 1990s. So when I was a child in primary school, if we want to buy meat, if we want to buy sugar, if we want to buy rice, if we want to buy clothes, you have to get the coupon. Yeah, at that moment, because of the production for the society was not like now. It's boosting. Now it's boosting. You can buy everything freely. Yeah, the government encourage you to consume as much as possible. So since then, all the policies has been changed. The labor can be moved to work as migrant laborers, and more population will move to the urban area, went to the industry. So the village and the agriculture has been changed a lot. So now if you visit the village in China, it's totally different to when I grew up. So I always because I was the same age with our we call it reforming and opening policy. I was born in end of 1970s. So I grew up with this process, and I'm not a researcher. I'm a witness for this transformation. So because most of you have no any idea about China, only several of you has visited China. So you can see the picture. So these pictures is for the before. When I was, it's me. Well, yes, I was a master student. I did my master research in some villages. You can see at that time the village, the house in the village were quite poor. But now most village like this way. So you can see the villagers. I did my PhD dissertation in a very poor village. So they also do not have any concrete road in the village. You have to walk every day, climb. So here is me in winter season. So it's just in 2007 to 2008. It's just almost 20 years ago. But now you go to all the village, the car can go to the village directly. But before, it's possible. So at that time, sometimes we also use motorcycles. Yeah, motorcycles for the local transformation. So now you can find some bus station. So the villages, you can see the difference. This also is me. So you can see that it's totally, now it's the village. The village like in China, it's like this way. It's totally different pictures. So sometimes when we reviewed the history of agricultural development and village development, we are quite proud of our transformation because we witnessed the transition happened in village area. In 2004 to 2003, I was in one village. I went to that village. I cannot get any signal of a cell phone. You cannot call to your friend. I have to put my cell phone on the roof of the house, then to wait for the signal, then send a message, then put there, then wait for my boyfriend. At that moment, he was my boyfriend. So to wait for the message back. So then for 1 week in summer, you cannot go to the water to have a bath. So shower, nothing, no cleaning toilet. So I started to use a cigarette at that moment. Just I need to go to very dirty toilet. So I need some cigarette to help me to use it. So just 25 years ago. But now you visit the village, you can find, when I did my PhD research in the village, so I stayed with farmers, the food they provided to me. Very simple, very simple. But now if you go to our village, I'm so sorry, it's not polite, but I forgot to change the picture. So you can see these dishes are always get more weight when I traveled. So now in the village, they have the clinics, they have the elder caring center and the library for the villagers, the kids garden, and for some do some exercise. So when I did my PhD research in village, you cannot find any hostel. I only can stay here. I take this photo. Several years later, I came back to my village. So every day I have to bring the sleeping bag with me, to try to find a room to stay. So, but now if you go to the village, you can find some good hostel there and the coffee shops in the village. I think Asha, the Lukman has experienced this. So and also agricultural production. Before we also use the buffalo and the donkey as the main the livestock for agricultural production. But now most in China, they use the tractors and the combining system and the drone system. You cannot find too many people working in the village, in the agriculture, and the e-commerce has developed so fast in village. So you can organize some online shops there, and it's become very different picture. It's almost developed. So that's some pictures. I just want to show you what China villages look like. So if we go back to our topic, how to understand the transformation in rural area in past decades. So I think maybe at least we can understand from 4 perspectives. The first one is urban-rural relationship. It's totally changed. And the second one is about the farmers' employment and the income structure. So we always use the income structure because the farmers' income comes from different sectors. And also the farming system, the agricultural production. So we still think agricultural production is quite important for us. Even agricultural GDP only contribute about 7% of our total GDP. But in our system, the government always put agricultural food security as the priority, top priority. So every year in China, the government release the #1 national policy. The #1 national policies always focus on agricultural development. So every year we have to research the #1 policies. And finally, it's the value of function of rural area. So it's different. I visited several deserts in Indonesia. So now in most deserts, it's a residential area. But in China, rural village has transferred from residential area to the business area, to the development area, not only for the residents, and also for the new type of business development, because a village provided more space for some new business development. So this the first one is the urban-rural relations. Because before, when I studied as a master, like most of you at your age, we write essays. We wrote essays about China development. The first sentence always in the dire relations between urban and the rural area, and the rural become something like that. But now, the image totally changed. So now we see the difference between, so what's happened for the slides, the income gap become less and less, because in past several decades, since 2004, before 2004, China's development policies, the priority is to promote urban development. So urban priority. But since 2004, the government changed the policy. So we think, okay, now we have started to consider how to promote villages development. Because why before that 2004, government didn't invest too much on agriculture and the rural area? Because we started our reform in rural area. So we called the household responsibility system. This is the land tenure system. If you read some articles written by Justin Lin in 1980s, so Justin Lin, Justin Lin Yifu, he was the chief economist of World Bank. So he wrote a lot of articles about household responsibility system in China. So with this one institutional innovation, it promotes agricultural development. So we think also village can develop by themselves. So the government didn't invest too much on agriculture, because at that moment, our priority should be promote urbanization and industrialization. So that's why we cannot get rural development and the urban area development in same time due to limited resources. So that's why. But after 2004, because since 1990s, the income of urban residents become higher and higher. But the agriculture, the farmers' income increase slowly, but very slowly. So the gap between income, the income gap between rural residents and the urban residents become higher and higher. Inequality become very important feature of China at that moment, 20 years ago. So that's why the government is consider, okay, it's very dangerous if we maintain this trend. It's not stable, because the socialists should share the wealth, not just allow some group become richer, some group become stay in poor. So that's why we reform, adapt our policies. Then the government started to invest huge money to promote agricultural development and rural development. So we exempt the agricultural tax and started to provide direct subsidy to farmers since 2004, and build up the social pension system, social medical insurance system. So now a lot of policies implemented in China for agriculture or rural development just started since 2004, only 20 years ago. So since then, and also the government started construct infrastructure in village. So now you can go to the village with the good road, and you can find the traffic light. You can have different public services in village. Before, all these things come from the villager themselves. The government didn't invest too much, but since 2004, all the infrastructures, all the public services, even the farmers' income, the money comes from the government intervention. So that's why if you visited the villages in China, the farmers always we are waiting for the government. Yeah, this is the government's obligation. So they always say everything will go to the government. So government has played important role to promote this kind of development. So, but now the income gap in between urban and the rural become less and less. If you visited the Zhejiang province, it's become quite small, narrow gap. The income of urban area is only 1.6 times to rural farmers. So it's become more inclusive and more equal society. So that's the very big change in past 2 decades. And also, before, if you read the Fi Xiaotong, one of the most earlier anthropologists in China, he studied in LSE. He wrote a book, China Peasant's Life, the peasant's life in China, something like that. So he used a word to describe the China. They called the peasant society. The China is a peasant society. But now we think, okay, China is not peasant society. It's a kind of urban and rural area development at the same time. So now the most Chinese, they live in urban area. So urbanization until now is about 68%. Yeah, because before we only have 20 to 30 of population lived in urban area, but now, yeah, the urbanization is become higher and higher. And the village, because more and more farmers, they moved from rural to urban area, and also education contribute a lot. So in China, Chinese parents always invest money for kids' education. For example, I come from a fisheries farmers family, but I and my brother went to university. Then we will not go back. So a lot of, in China, if you ask the professors, and IT engineering, most of them comes from village. So the population in village become less and less. So if you went to the village, you didn't find too many people. they just have a lot of houses, good house there, but you cannot find too many persons there. Yeah, only the old people in the village. So that's a lot of village has disappeared. So the number of our village has declined. So when I started as a master, we said, okay, in China, in 2000 year, we still have 680,000 administrative villages. But now, we only have about 400 villages. So because some villages has been transferred to community in urban due to urbanization. So that's the big change in China. And also you can see that even in the village, before in the village, you cannot access to good road, access to electricity, access to any public services. It's very difficult because it's separated. But when I was a child, I went to my grandparents' family. It's not so far. It's spent 5 hours. You have to walk. At that moment, I really didn't like to go back because you have to walk for 2 hours because you just, the main road go to the township. Then from township to the village, you have to walk. But now, it's only spent me 20 minutes by car. I said, oh my God, it's so close. But why? When I was a child, I think was so far. Sometimes no bus. I have to use the ship. You know, my hometown is along Yangtze River. We have the ship. We have to use the ship. Oh God! So you cannot. How you imagine? Now I just in this Chinese New Year, I went back. I visited my uncle there because from my house we drive the car. It's only 20 minutes. So that means the infrastructure become more and more convenient. So you can see the village now. It look like very beautiful garden. So we have done something in the village. I think maybe in the future you have opportunities to go to our village. You can see this is the village. Yeah, you knew this one here? Yeah, in Manluan. Yeah, you have visited. So totally different things like before. So you can see that's some public space for the village. So that's the first point for that. The second one is the farmers, because farmers' income is also the priority for our government. So every year we have to carefully calculate the farmers' income growth rate. So we now in our policy, so it's indicator. It's one indicator to evaluate the performance of a local government. You have to guarantee the income growth rate of farmers should be higher than urban people. So the growth rate, not the income, the growth rate should be higher. If you cannot do that, it means your performance is quite poor. You could not get promotion. So that's why all the local governors have to consider how to try their best to generate income for the farmers. So since the last several decades, so our farm job is gradually become main income source of farmers, like in Indonesia. So in Indonesia, the villagers' main income maybe comes from informal economy, come from migrant laborers. Yeah, especially they moved to caravan. Yeah, the caravan. They said, okay, caravan. They didn't need local laborers. Yeah, caravan. Yeah, caravan. Yeah. So in China, you know, we have 1.4 billion population. So about 300 million migrant laborers, not international migrant, domestic Yeah, almost the 3. It means each household in rural area, they at least have one labor worked in non-agricultural sector. So that's why the farmers' income, the family's income become higher and higher because they can get very stable salary. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Okay, so what? So that means the people who work on agriculture become less and less. I think we have another one. No. Okay. Yeah. So so now in China, the main livelihood for the farmers are not agriculture. It's not. It's similar to Indonesia. Yeah, in Indonesia, yeah, I think the main livelihood for villages, not agriculture anymore, because of most of them, they sell the land to the people from Jakarta. Yeah, I always ask them, so who you sell your land to? They say, oh, the people from Jakarta. Why not the people from Bogo? So, and the farmers' income increase, yeah. But most important, because in our research, we always focus on the structure. So due to the livelihood adaptation, so the farmers' income structure has been changed. So you can see in the 1980s, the farmers' main agriculture, the main income of farmers comes from agriculture. Then gradually, yeah, become from wage, from the employment, non-farm employment. And then you can see here, it's quite important from here. You can see before 2005, the transfer income of farmers is quite few. But gradually, now you can see the transfer income contributed almost 20%. So what means of this income? Who knows this? So what means of transfer income for farmers? Yeah, the mainly comes from government subsidy. Yeah, we call it the transfer. But also from the non-family members. But in China, you know, we are not like in your country. In your country, if you married, then you have to register one family card. Family card. You know, you have married couple has an independent family card. Even they lived with their parents in one house. In one house, maybe they have two families. But in China, we didn't encourage this kind of separation. We hope the adult kids could stay in one family with their older parents. We didn't encourage that separation. So that's why we do not have too many non-family members, because even they lived in urban area, their parents lived in village, but they are still in same family card. We also have family card, but maybe they were in same family card. So this income is not transfer income, it's still wage income. But so that's why in China we talk about the transfer income mainly comes from policy, from the government. So remember, I said, since 2004, the government has invested huge financial resource to rural development, agricultural development, also for farmers' income. So the government provided very large scales of revenue for the different types of subsidy for the farmers. So that's why now in China, the family of farmers, their main income comes from agriculture, not only agriculture and also local business, and also the employment and government, especially for the poor family and for the family with only have the old members. The main income comes from government. Yeah, government. So that's why the government has provided a lot of support. So that's the poverty reduction policy. Yeah, and if you visit the villages, their house, you will find in China. So all this is not clear. I do not know why. So this the kind of facilitators like most all the farmers has refrigerator, has a TV set, washing machine, motorcycle, cars, a smartphone. Yeah, you can check what you have in your house. Then you can find it in villages house in China. So I think you have visited some farmers in China. You can share more. And also the agriculture, because the less and less farmers lived in rural area. So before we just depend on the smallholder farmer system, the farmers has to work on their very small pieces of land. But now they want to work in the factory. But you cannot waste your land. How do that? So then they have to transfer their using right of land to the other people. So now in China, we said, okay, we has agricultural production model has transferred from smallholder farmer-based to medium size farmers, not just the smallholder farmers. So if you visited in China, and in other hand, the agricultural machinery, the tractors. So in past several decades, you can see that the tractors, the number of tractors, has been boosted. Yeah, most farmers, they didn't work in agriculture in the field directly. Just in some mountain areas, we do not have this kind of machineries. The farmers has to work by hand. But in paddy rice, in wheat production, in maize production, so the agricultural machinery rate is almost 90%. It's from land preparation to post harvesting. Yeah, you do need work, animal. So another thing is the fertilizer using, because I know that in Indonesia we criticize a lot about green revolution. Yeah, because of the green revolution, so the soil quality become poor and poor. The yield of the paddy rice become less and less. So that's why a lot of farmers, they cannot invest in agriculture continually. They have to sell their land. They prefer to work as an agricultural labor, but they didn't want to cultivate agriculture by themselves because they could not invest that because of the yield become less and less. As I know, in past several days, I visited some paddy rice farmers. So now in China, we also have this stage, abusing of fertilizer. But now we start to realize the problem. So we encouraged to develop what we call the green agriculture. So we encourage the farmers reduce using fertilizer, to use the traditional things, and also, as I mentioned, the farmers, they transfer the land to others. The transferring rate is about 30%. But here in some villages, the farmers sell the land, the ratio is about 80%. Yeah, it's higher. But in China, we also have very higher land transferring rate. And this is some agricultural, the new, we call it the new agricultural producer, cooperatives, family farm. We call the family farm. The family farm is the average size is about 5 hectares to 10 hectares. Yeah, the family farm is a medium size, the medium scale, not smallholder farmers. And the rural area, so because in China we always say the 三农问题. 三农 means three agricultural issue. It means agricultural, farmer, and villager. So they call it 3农, 三农问题. But now, because as I have mentioned, before the village is a place for farmers living, residential area. But now, because of the construction of village movement, the village become more and more beautiful. It's like a park, and also has good access to all the infrastructure and the public services. So they have provided a lot of new business potentials in rural area. For example, for the IT people who worked by the laptop, they don't need to work in the city. They live in rural, they can work because the internet speed is same. And in rural area, they have fresh air, they have good space, they have cheap rent. So a lot of young people, they started to move to village to develop their business, to use up the landscape, the advantages of village. They think, oh, the village is much better than city. Like the village in Indonesia is more comfortable, maybe, than Jakarta. In Jakarta, our traffic jam was so terrible. But in village, yeah, you just stand there, yeah, you enjoy. But the precondition, you could have equal access to all kind of services. Otherwise, the young people, even for me, you cannot survive. So now in China, so the rural area has become the different meanings for the people. Before, we do not like to go back to village. Now we really want to go back to the village. So that's the new phenomenon. So we said, okay, now the new values of a rural area is like the economic value, social, and the, ecological, and the cultural. So how to make this value more sustainable is our new policy priorities. So you can see this it's one village we are working. So if I'm not sure if you ask you to go to this kind of village to stay there to develop your business, you want to go or you do not want to go. But a lot of Chinese young people, they like to enjoy this kind of landscape. So that's what Professor Li lead our team. We are working for one program we call the Rural CEO. So because along with the more and more young people, they go back to the rural area. They know about the industry, they know about the digitalization, but they do not know how to work with local farmers. So that's why we organize different types of training program for them to help them to build up the good relationship between the young generation and the villages and the village development. And we hope their movement, they can also contribute to rural development. So that's what we are doing in China. So that's why, go to the conclusion. We think in past several decades, in China, so rural-urban relationship is shifting from the urban-rural dual structure to integrated urban-rural development. And the farmers' livelihood have shifted from being primarily agriculture-based to non-agriculture-based, accompanied by significant income growth. It's more diverse. And agricultural production has become mechanized, transitional from smallholder farming to moderate scale operations. And also the function and the values of a rural area have gradually diversified. So we think the integration of the issues concerning agriculture, rural areas, and the farmers has begun to shift toward separation. So what it means for that? Before in China, in the village, only farmers, only agriculture. So they combined. But now, if you go to the village, it's more like Indonesia. Because in Indonesia, in desa, Not only farmers live there, you also have civil servants, teachers, or some other types of employers who lived in desert. But before in China, China village is closed. We said village in China is closed. It's not physical closed. It's the regulation closed. Because you cannot become a villager identity. You cannot apply for identity card in village. Now you can register it. But in China, you cannot. So, but now you go to the village in China, you can see not only have agriculture and also have the literal education, the layer, the countryside, the tourisms. You not only have agriculture, and not only have farmers, they also have the young people, new businessmen in village. So we said, okay, the three Nong, Nong means agriculture, so has been separated. So that's a kind of transformation happened in China. So that's what I would like to share with all of you. Thank you very much.
Professor Tang, for your presentation is really insightful and also give a really understanding for us on how to understand the rural transformation in China. Maybe before we let the audience to ask questions, I want to pose one question probably. In the current conditions, has urban and rural integration truly been achieved or is still in ongoing process? You said that the government provide a very large investment on the rural developments. Is it succeeded to attract the youth to go back to the rural area?
Yeah, it's still ongoing. Yeah, it's still ongoing because we still think the infrastructure, we still have the gap between urban area and the rural area. So now we try to invest more finance to construct upstructure. And not only the traditional infrastructure, because the types of infrastructure has been upgraded, like the cold chain, like the cold storage, okay. Something, and also some internet services. Yeah, I think it's still ongoing. The government still think we hope we need to promote the rural development, not just a stop. And also, since 2 or 3 years ago, the government released a new policies. In our system, we have central government,
yes,
we have provincial, we have municipal, we have county, then we have the village.
Okay.
So now we hope we can boost the county economic development, because we think a county is very important to connect big city and village. So before, because the county economy is not so developed.
Okay.
It's not all, but in some. So now the county development is also become quite important, and also township.
Yep.
So the government try to do more.
Okay, thank you very much. So there are 5 layers from the central government to the village level, yeah? Okay, so now I think I will open a question and answer session for the audience. So please, if you have a questions, you can raise your hand. Probably 3 questions first. Anyone? You can raise your hand. 3 first questions. If anyone want to ask regarding our beginning presentation about rural transformations in China, so please. And then the second, maybe? Second questions? Okay, first, yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Puji Rahayu. I'm doctoral student in IPB University. I want to ask 2 questions to you, but I'm sorry, maybe my English is not as good as yours. Yeah, just now you explained that to promote the transformation of agriculture field in China is by agriculture modernization and mechanization, but it's need I think it's need much funding for that. And in Indonesia, the financial is not in good condition or position. So can you maybe give other alternatives for us about the tools or maybe ways to how to promote the agriculture in rural area, but not so many fund to deliver there? That's the first question. Can you get it? I'm sorry. And the second, it's about the knowledge of the people in the rural area. The modernization and the mechanization needs good knowledge. And it's not automatically the people in the rural area can understand the mechanization process. So can you explain how in China the transformation can give understanding or deliver knowledge to people in rural area fast? Thank you. That's my questions.
Okay, thank you very much. So first is about the funding, yeah, on how rural transformation can be implemented in the limited funds, especially in the case of Indonesia. Maybe you can answer the first question first.
Yeah, I think these two questions are quite useful for us because when we talk about our team, we always say, okay, how we share our development experience with other countries, because a lot of researchers, they think maybe our Chinese experience is useful in China, but it's more unique in the world because we have totally different system for that. But actually, I have mentioned, before 2004, in the rural area development depend on the institutional reform, like we said, the land tenure reform. So the farmers, the villages, in China, the village is different to the village in your country. In China, if the village is not only the administrative unit, here is a more administrative unit. But in China, the village is an economic unit, and administrative unit, and the political unit. So that's why the village has their own assets, like land. I said land belongs to village. Land, the mountains, the public resources belong to the village. So in some villages, the villages committee has the capacity to develop the village's income. So they use the village income to construct the services. Actually, in the beginning, not only the poor area, the village development of finance depend on the government. But if you went to Zhejiang province, some coast area provinces, so the villages development, the finance mainly depend on villages themselves, because the village has the land, has their assets. They know how to operate that, to make the financial profit for that. And in China, yeah, for the farmers just start depend. That's the issue now, because since 2004, before the farmers are quite independent, but now it's become a little bit dependent on the government input. But most of villagers, they also has their capacity to invest agricultural development by themselves. They share the cost with the government. The government invests the irrigation system, but the farmers has invested on their own agricultural machinery. The government provides part of subsidy to them to buy the agricultural machinery. So in China, the village is a quite important economic unit. And also, I'm not sure about Indonesia. in China, we said the government, not only the central government. We have the central, provincial, municipal, county, and the township. All levels of government has their own revenue. So the different layers of government also shared the cost. So some money from central government and also can have the money from provincial, from municipal, from county. So all the layers of the government has their own income, so they can invest. And for the poverty reduction, for the poor area, the social mobilization, the social resource mobilization is also important. For example, all the state-owned enterprises, we have very strong the state-owned enterprises. All the state-owned enterprises, all the universities, all the big private enterprises are not only encouraged, maybe also can see are required to contribute to rural development, especially in poor areas. For example, my university, we have to assist one county development. So every year we have to collect some budget to help the poor counties' development. So this is we call it the social mobilization. Not only all the finance comes from the government, all the entities in this country, you need to contribute to rural development. So the money comes from different channels. Yeah, so that's the first question. The second one is about the knowledge and the skills. Yeah, that's true. We said now in China we are in the rural, we call it the rural revitalization strategy. So if we said, okay, rural revitalization cannot depend on the traditional farmers in village or the old farmers in village, because they has less education, they has less knowledge, they has less asset. So that's why now in China we encourage the new young generation go back to agriculture, go to rural area. So if you visited some villages, you can see a lot of large-scale farming system, the greenhouse system, the modern agriculture system. Most of the people who worked in this area, they are young. They are young graduates from university. Definitely, our government also has invested a number of training program for the farmers. So to teach the farmers how to use new technologies. Yeah, but sometimes the training cannot play good role, but the young generation, they are encouraged because of the agricultural machineries, modernization of agriculture. So that's why young people, they are willing to go for agriculture. Agriculture become more abstractive sector, not like before. If you are only working in the so hot weather, in the field, you have to cut the paddy rice. When I was a child, I was required by my parents to go to my grandparents' village to harvest the paddy. I cannot do that. Sunshine, then I kind of warmth. Oh God, it's very difficult job. Now no people want to do that. Yeah. So, but with agricultural machinery, now it's easier. We use the combining system. So now, in China, in this March, I was invited by CCTV to make a talk about the agricultural development. All the women in village, old woman in the village, more than 70 years old. She can control the drawing system. So she do that, yeah, to do the plant protection, to spray the pesticides and the fertilizer by the drawing system controlled by her smartphone. So now in China, it's the using rate of smartphone is more than 100%. So all the people, from very small baby to very old people, they know how to use a smartphone. So now we said the cell phone becomes the new agricultural instruments. So actually, agricultural machinery help the farmers who work on agriculture. So we have this kind of program, but yeah, for the not everywhere maybe. But in the future, I think, it's especially for young generation, they will move back. Even for my daughter, when I worked for local government, I brought my daughter to visit the horticulture because the working place is famous for rose plantation. Then I asked my daughter, if in the future, if you work for this kind of rose plantation in greenhouse, so are you willing to study for agriculture? She said, okay, if I worked like this way, use the computer to control the system, irrigation system, fertilizer system, and she said it's a good job. Yeah, she liked to go back to agriculture. So that's I think the new agricultural production mode changed the perceptions for agriculture now. Yeah.
So thank you. So how is it? No? Okay, so it's not only the young generation, but the old ones also can operate the IoT. Yeah. Now the second questions probably. Is there anyone want to raise the questions, please?
Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. We, as the audience, got a lot of new knowledge about the China transformation in agriculture. I would like to ask two questions. The first one is, would you like to explain more about the government subsidy that you mentioned before that given to the farmer in rural areas? Because it's new for me and we don't have this kind of system in Indonesia. What are the conditions given, and what if the farmer family that already moved to the urban areas, do they also get that kind of subsidy? And the second question is, you mentioned that the government has successfully transformed the rural areas in China. So the rural areas now has a lot of new values in ecology, economy, and cultural, like in Indonesia. And there are new phenomenon where the young people wants to come and stay there. But in contrary, you also mentioned that there are still a lot of young people that wants to come to the urban area to study. My question is, how the government overcome it? Is there any other policy to promote or encourage the young people to stay and live in rural area? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The first question is about subsidy. Yeah, we have different types of subsidy. Not we have some direct income subsidy, like we call it the basic, we call it minimum standard, living standard. So if your income is less than the minimum living standard, the government will compensate the gap. And also for the elder pension, so that's the direct income subsidy. But most subsidy in China is to promote agricultural development. It's based on your agricultural activity. So it's not just to give you money. It's just to give you money to develop your agriculture. So like we have the fertilizer subsidy or the plastic covering subsidy, irrigation subsidy, the diesel subsidy, the seeds subsidy, agricultural machinery subsidy, the trees planting subsidy, the animals raising subsidy. Just if you do agriculture, you can get the different types of subsidy. So that's why after almost 20 years subsidy system, in China now, we produce too much agricultural product. So everything, all the agricultural products in China, the price is quite cheap. Even for all the kind of fruit, now the durian in Indonesia, it is very expensive. Since China started to plant by ourselves, the price, then blueberry, blueberry? Before it's very expensive because we always import. But since 2 years ago, we have the technology to plant the blueberry. Now oh my God, you can eat blueberry as meals. Very, very cheap. It's only several dollars per kilo. It become cheap and cheap because the government encourage you to work on different types of agriculture. My mother, she is illiteracy, but sometimes she always see some very philosophy remarks. So she said, okay, now you just did do anything, you can get money. In past, you did everything, you didn't get anything. But now you did anything, you can get a lot of money. If you are not lazy, you cannot become a poor people because just you do something, then you got subsidy. So this subsidy moved to the agricultural production. So that's the main cause of agricultural development. So agriculture is not profitable in any country. Become profitable just because of subsidy. Yeah. So that's why WTO agricultural agreement very difficult to get. So because all the countries want to subsidize their farmers. Yeah. So that's the subsidy. Even they moved to urban area, we have some subsidy based on your size of your land. You have the land, you got that. And for the
second question
is what?
Is regarding how the gap between the youth who don't want to back to the agriculture, how the government
actually
overcome it.
In our policy discourse, promote higher urbanization is still our objective. So we didn't expect most people move back to village because village has no so big space. So we still encourage urbanization. I think our peak rate of urbanization may be 70% or a little bit higher. Then maybe we only can keep 30%, 20 to 30% population lived in rural area. So the government will not require you go back. But if you want to do your business in rural area, the government will give you support. Yeah, give you support. Like in Zhejiang province, for the new graduates, some years ago, I'm not sure how about now, 3 or 4 years ago, the Zhejiang province, they released a new policy. For new graduates, if you want to do the business in village, the government will give you you call it start up, the fund. Around $10,000 to $20,000. Yeah, you use the money to do that, and also give you 3-year tax-free, rent-free. Yeah, if you want to do something, the government will give you support. But and also government also encourage you to work in manufacturer or in the service industry, the service sector, The government will provide the money to send you to accept the vocational training. If you know, we have Ministry of Labor, Human Resource and the Labor. So this ministry is responsible for the vocational training. If you join the vocational training, you you get some certificate. Then the government will give you the subsidy to pay for your cost. So every year the government will organize, we call it organized migrant laborers to urban area, and also from west province to east province. Yeah, the government still continue to encourage more and more young people from rural area to urban area, because you only have the experience in urban area, you can get knowledge and skills. In the future, you go back to the village, you will bring the new knowledge and skills. Not just, oh, you stay in the village, you do this, you do that. No, it's impossible. Yeah, it's very difficult because you do not know the outside world. Yeah.
So, okay, so before our questions for the online participants, you can also prepare if you have any questions. Now first, Prof. Rilus, please. And then after that,
Terima kasih, thank you. Very interesting presentation. If I can have 3 questions, very short.
Okay.
First, is there any unemployment in the rural area? Second, the products of the farmers, is it belong to the farmers and it's up to them whether they use it for own consumption or they can sell it, or it's belong to the government? And the third one, I forget already.
Okay, maybe 2 questions.
Yeah, okay, hang on. Okay, I think 2 enough. Later on, if it come up and then
so is there any unemployment in the village? Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah,
Sure.
please.
Okay, so how is there any procedure or requirement to be entitled to the land in the rural area?
Thank you, Prof. Rilus. So the 3 questions. The first question is there any unemployment on the village?
Actually, we didn't see unemployment issue in village, in farmers, because the farmers, at least they have their land. So at least they are agricultural farmer. They have agriculture. They have their own business. They are not landless farmers. So we didn't use unemployment as a word to describe the farmers. Unemployment, we only see the people in urban area, especially for the new graduates. So we didn't use that. So that's why we don't think, okay, in China, in villages, they have unemployment because at least they can work in their own land. No, not their own, their land, actually. Definitely, in the beginning of 1990s or before 1990s, the farmers cannot. We were in a planning economic system, so the farmers cannot sell their products in the market. They have to transfer to the state. But since we have the economic reform, so now no any limitations. The farmers can produce anything for the market. So, but sometimes the price of the agricultural products in market is becoming quite low because we also imported. Sometimes our price is higher than international price, and sometimes the price inflation. So the government want to protect the farmers' income. So we set up the minimum prices protection mechanism. If the price in the market is lower than the minimum price, then the government will purchase all the products from the farmers with the minimum price to protect the profits. Otherwise, the farmers will have no money invest for next season. If I think several years before in Indonesia, because of the farmers cannot get enough profit from paddy rice, so they cannot invest agriculture for next season. So they have to sell their land. In China, we have the price protection system to protect the farmers' minimum profit from agriculture. So that's the second. So the third one is about entitlement. Yeah, the farmers has even they do not have the ownership certificate, but they have the entitlement of the using right. They have the I think it's the color. The color is we have different color for that. For the residential, for the house property, they have the red certificate. The farmers do not have the land. You know, in China, in rural area, the land divided two types. One is residential land, one is for the arable land, and also we have the forest land. That's too much, but the main is the arable land and the residential land. So the residential land, not like you in your country. So you have the house, you have the land. So in China, for the residential land, the ownership of the land and the ownership of the house are separated. So the ownership of the land belong to the village, not the government, belong to the village. In the city belong to the government. The urban land belong to the state. The rural land belong to the village. So it means the farmers has the property certificate for the house. For the house. So if you are the villagers in the village, so that's why I said the village is closed. It's not open because of the land right. So if you are villagers, you can have the qualification to using this land to construct your house. If you are not a villager, you could not have this right. You cannot buy. You only can rent the house from the farmers, but you cannot buy the land from the farmers. You rent because some farmers, they don't want to use their house. They can rent to the people from an urban area, but only can rent 20 years. Then after 20 years, if the farmers want to continue, of course you can continue. But we want to set the duration because protect the farmers. If the farmers want to use their house, you know, it's very difficult to get back. But now we set up the 20 years. After 20 years, you have to return the house using right to the farmers. So to protect, how to protect the farmers' right is our priority. So that's they have that. And for the forest land, the land using tenure is 70 years. So the farmers got a green book for that. In that book, they said, okay, this piece of forest land belongs you to from this which year to which year. It's almost 70 years for the forest land. For the arable land, it's 30 years. So you also have that certificate. So this certificate, you can use it as a deposit in the bank, can get loan. But the bank cannot get back your land. But it's a right. It's a right. So that's why, because before the farmer said, okay, I want to get loan. I have no any deposit. So now the government said, okay, you can use your certificate of using right to work as a deposit to get loan in the bank. So that's why in China, you said you do not have ownership, but you have full using right of the land. And also this kind of non-ownership can protect you to always to keep the using right of the land. It's a kind of guarantee. So the farmers has the certificate. Then when the 30 years has passed, has expired, then the government will renew to add one sentence. Okay, this new contract years start from 2026 to 2056. Yeah, so we have that system. A very strict protection of the land and of the farmers' land right. Yeah.
It's very interesting facts, yeah? It's quite different with our systems. And Prof. Rulis, is there any? Okay, enough. So the next questions, Ibu Melanie, please. Yeah.
Maybe not the questions, but more like thank you for a very insightful presentations. And as I listen to your presentations, my mind is racing from frustrations to making comparison with the situation of Indonesia, and then to what to do with this, and why we come to making comparisons in a sense. And several things that I can pinpoint is that the base start with the land reform that guarantee the rights to farmers. In addition to that is the farmers and agriculture. The government really protect that. And the second is, although there is a huge movement to urban area, but because the gap between rural and urban is so low, then you don't go to urban because you want to escape the rural. And that is what happened in Indonesia mostly, because there's no job, there's no land, there's few jobs for the youth, with educated youth, and then you go to rural with the to urban with the expectation to get it all, but you don't know. And then the third thing is the policy, the government's policy that really are into food security, agriculture, the interest of agriculture and farmers, which I think this is self-critics. The Indonesian government are moving out of that. And even in terms of education, I guess agriculture education nowadays is not being seen as something that is attractive anymore. So you mentioned about this 4 key elements to understand the rural-urban transformations, and I thank you for that, because that can also be useful to see what changes that happens in Indonesia, although it's totally different things. We move, you mentioned about urban-rural relationships that move into integration. We are into totally separations, and I don't think we still focus on cities development and infrastructure development compared to what happened with the rural. And then the farmers, employment, income structure, etc. So several things, the key elements can be used to analyze the situation in Indonesia, but it's totally, the Indonesians will say bumi langit. It's like totally different things. And I guess that can also be the lesson learned that we want to, that we will have to go into, and because that's precisely what didn't happen in Indonesia, and it did happen there with a very strong government, and I think you also has like thousands of years of history compared to ours. But in, just one question about the urbanization's rate in China, because Indonesia, I guess, is also in the 60% of urbanization rate at the moment. And in terms of also the increase, but and rural urbanizations is not only about the moving of people out of the rural area, but also because the changes of the definitions of urban areas. And if the definitions of urban and rural is getting closer, it's not so much difference. Actually, then even the urbanizations is not so, it's not bumi langit, it's not like totally different things. You just move because there is the opportunity of non-agriculture, the rural area, you preserve and develop more the agriculture area. So yeah, just just a few things that was just running through my mind, but that's it. Institutional reform, government policy, subsidy to agriculture, protect the farmers, and urbanizations, but at the same time agriculture that move into mechanizations that sort of like alleviate the problems of labor access, etc., that happen in the agriculture. So again, thank you for a very insightful presentation.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. I think that's why we come to Indonesia. We always think we could do some comparative studies between China and Indonesia. So that's why every time I come to Indonesia, I always try to find several days to visit the different part of Indonesia, try to build up a kind of concept or framework to compare rural transformation in China and Indonesia. So in the future, we hope we can work with your team together to do the further analysis, like the land systems different, the urbanization, and it's also different, and also the farming, the livelihood. They share some comments, but they also has different perspectives. Yeah, I think that's why I have. Last year, Professor Lee asked me to move my research focus from Africa to Indonesia. I said, no, I cannot do that. It's so difficult. I have no confidence to do that. But now I started to build up this confidence. I think we really shared a lot of things. I can, comparing to my work in Africa, maybe sometimes very difficult to understand that system. But in Indonesia, we can easily to understand because the culture relationship is more closer. Yeah, so I think we hope we can have very good, successful cooperation in the future.
Hopefully.
Yes, the food also similar.
Yeah, the food is also similar.
Yeah, the survivor is the precondition to conduct research.
So it's a culinary, it's a precondition for good work in the future. Yeah. So thank you very much for the questions from participants and also the comments. And maybe one question from our online participants. I think there are several people on YouTube and also for online participants. Is there any? Is there any comments or questions? If there is no questions from our online participants, so I think this will be the end of our discussions. Thank you very much, Professor Tang and all participants. And from today's discussion, I think there are several things that I can conclude. The first, the rural transformation in China is a gradual and multidimensional process. It involves restructurings of urban and rural relations, and it is also fully supported by the governments, especially the subsidies from many activities that are productive for the rural developments in China. So thank you very much once again, Professor Tang, and also all participants. I hope this will become a fruitful discussions. And before we end these discussions, we will give as a token of our appreciations for our presenters today, Professor Tang, we would like to present our gratitude to our distinguished speakers for sharing valuable insights with us today. So please, Prof. Rilus, as Executive Chair of IPB Center of Excellence on China Rural Transformation, to give some token of appreciations. Okay, please give applause. session nih. Thank you very much. And then the second one. Yeah. I think the China Agricultural University president said this is a very Asian things to do. Okay, please give applause. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, before we close the sessions, please you can move to the center as we will take a documentations for our sessions. Move to the center. The participant on the left and the right, please. Okay. Udah? Kelihatan? Oh. Okay, in the count of three, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. With IPB Dikdaya style. What in China? It's san. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen and all participants, we have now reached the end of today's sessions. Thank you very much for your active participation. This will not only the series, there will be another 5 series of discussion, so will be good if you can come. Stay tuned for our next discussion series, especially the last one will be the big one. Okay, thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing you in the future discussions. Good afternoon. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.